Well, good afternoon. My name is Erin Maney, if we haven't met, and I am the project manager for Open SUNY Communities of Practice. I'm also a member of the SUNY OER Services team. On behalf of the SUNY OER Services team, I would like to welcome all of you to the third webinar in our Showcase series. The Showcase webinar series is a program that's offered monthly by SUNY OER Services with the aim of featuring OER faculty champions from across our diverse community of practitioners. These faculty have elevated their teaching practice by incorporating OER into their courses, and in doing so, they have positively impacted their students' learning experience, making higher education more accessible, affordable, and engaging. We're excited to share today's webinar with you. We're pleased to host Sophia Georgiakaki today, Professor of Mathematics at Tompkins Cortland Community College. Sophia will be sharing about her journey to incorporate OER into her intermediate algebra courses and how that really led to a culture shift at her institution. Sophia got involved with OER in 2011 and has since led her department in adopting and adapting OER for all sections of 6 courses. She continues to develop and remix OER and loves working with the many outstanding professionals in SUNY and in the US. So Sophia, welcome today and thank you for sharing your time and your expertise. I'll let you go ahead and share your screen at this time.
Hello, everybody. Can you see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great. So like Erin just mentioned, I am from Tompkins Cortland Community College in upstate New York. And I was actually last weekend in California. I see we have an attendee from there. And it was very hard to come back to upstate New York. The weather in California was superb. So actually my trip into OER started in California. The Kaleidoscope grant in 2011 invited us in Los Angeles, in the Los Angeles area. And it was a nationwide initiative with 7 colleges to begin with. And the project goals were to collaborate. And I collaborated with the College of Santa Ana in California to save $50 per student per semester. And this was the reason we chose our intermediate algebra instead of a beginning or pre-algebra class, because our students were not spending more than $50 for these courses, but they were spending a significantly larger amount than $50 for intermediate algebra. And we needed to use already existing material that were Creative Commons licensed, and there was only one book in intermediate algebra by Tyler Wallace, who is a faculty member from the West Coast as well. And we had to increase success and retention by at least 5% in our courses, and we had to access 100,000 students by the end of the first year. And this is why the project reached out to community colleges mainly instead and asked for first year high enrollment courses instead of something more specialized that wouldn't have a significant impact. So the Kaleidoscope results are shown in this table. The red lines are instructors' student success in the same course before Kaleidoscope, and the black rectangle is after the Kaleidoscope or during the Kaleidoscope project. And if you notice, the most extreme change happened in intermediate algebra, and this was my sections. So we saw something very drastic happen that we didn't expect, and in fact the journey was not as good as it seems. So the first experience I had, my first semester, fall of 2011, using OER was really bad. So it didn't go as well as the chart reads. So I only got a 6% success for my first semester, and I think it was due to many limitations that the grant had, which luckily all of us now don't have anymore. So we were supposed to also use an open LMS. We had to use Sakai. Sakai at the time was not supporting mathematics, so it didn't have a math editor or anything like that. Our images and our equations were uploaded as images. They were not accessible to students. It was just a very bad experience for us. Another problem we had was that we didn't have anything interactive. We only had a PDF book that we were using, and obviously, you know, students don't really read books, let alone read mathematics books. So we had a difficulty getting our students to read and engage with the content. We needed something more interactive. Also, I would attribute a little bit of our disappointing results to the fact that we didn't really have enough experience in OER. It was an experimental stage. So I don't think our material was as good as it could have been. But in that fall semester, the Kaleidoscope team got together again in November in Park City, and we discussed our the difficulties we were experiencing. And at that time, the group hired David Lipman, who is from Pierce College, again, West Coast, and he developed a platform that offers algorithmically generated and interactive homework assignments. And that platform was called My Open Math at the time. So we started using that in spring 2012, and then for the next 3 semesters, I had satisfied the program goals. So I did increase my success by 9 or 10%. And so that was more than the 5%. I had increased significantly my retention. I have a chart I'm going to show you later. I had saved my students $120 per student per semester. And I had access to an online section and an in-class section. So for me, not something very large, but if I was able to scale it up, I would be able to access more students for the goals of the grant. However, I was not happy. So for me, 31% and 33% success rates were not what I was envisioning should come out of a fantastic packet that costs $0 and offers a book, an interactive homework, anything that the publisher had available, we had available to students. So I was very concerned with the fact that I couldn't make a better impression to my colleagues and to myself. I expected more from OER. So I didn't give up. Something fantastic happened in the summer of 2013, and I made changes that I will talk about in a minute. And I ended up with a success of 83%. And because we thought that this was very unusual and maybe we attributed to the motivation that students in the summer have, we waited to see what happens in the fall. And in the fall, I had a 75% success rate in my classes. Again, I was offering one in-class section and one online section. Our online section has an in-person paper and pencil pass-fail final exam. So students in the online section have a lot of stake when they come to take a paper test, which they haven't taken so far. So to have 75% success incorporated in the data with an online section, for me was definitely a significant change. So how did this happen? So what happened in the summer of 2013 that changed everything? I had the opportunity to network, get some training, and be able to use the basic 2 R's out of the 5, the ones that I consider the most important in OER experience. And this was, I was able to revise and to remix the content. So what I had done so far was to just use OER content that was available. But what I did in the summer of 2013 was I attended a workshop for math OER faculty in Denver. David Lipman was in there, Jane Souza was in there, Tyler Wallace was in through video, and basically we received some help in content that we were missing, software that we needed to develop, and some training on how to go in and touch the courses. So my 6th R is to recycle. So for me, the 5 R's of OER are not a linear list like we usually present to our faculty when we do presentations. For me, the 5 R's are a circle. So you actually circle yourself through the 5 R's. You make your own copies, then you adapt, you modify, you remix, you combine, then you reuse and you redistribute. You learn lessons from what you offer, you go back in and you do it again. You have an updated copy that you own, you revise, remix it, reuse it, redistribute, and it actually you keep spinning around the 5 R's until you perfect your game. And I think that's exactly what happened. So what tools did we use? The first thing that I used, or I added as an added feature to my courses that I had in the past, but I didn't have earlier, was a YouTube channel. So in this YouTube channel, I have several videos that are mathematical. They don't have a lot of views, if you notice, but they do have views from my students. So they are targeted videos mostly. I also was able to use multiple books. So that's the remix parts. I do give that information to my students ahead of time. We do combine them into one workbook for us, but I also provide a smaller version that is tailored exactly to the Tompkins Cortland students, and I call it a workbook. It's basically a deal like guided notes. So I give them information about that in the course webpage, and I also provide the workbook notes to them from the beginning of the semester. So the other thing that I was able to do was to add content that I didn't have before. So I really needed some higher level domain and range problems for my students. They weren't available. They actually were not available in the publisher content I was using earlier. And obviously they weren't available in OER content. So I wanted something higher level, something at the level that they will see in the tests that I wanted them to complete, and something that I really stress over and over and over through the course. So I really needed them to have a grasp and cascade the difficulty if I could. So what ended up happening was that through the course, I was able to reuse videos. Videos 1 and 3 are from our author, who is David Lipman, but video 4 is mine. So I wanted to make sure that they can do domain and range at more difficult levels, which is when we have denominators and when we have square roots. So also, I needed them to know more about function composition and how to do the domain for that, which is a little difficult because you combine a couple of things at the same time. So the way this happens is in my YouTube channel, I add all the content that I want for the course. All of this content targets a specific task that I want them to do, let's say domain, for example. And then I have, these are my notes, the way they are when they are available to students from the beginning. So I want them to be able to find the domain of these functions. And I know that it seems like it's very hard for an intermediate algebra, but it's actually an easy task if you teach your students how to do it. So these are the notes after they are complete. And if I am in class, this is what I work on in class, and then I just publish them online. If it is online, I offer them the empty book, the videos, and then they can see the notes completed as well. This is an example of a homework assignment. These are all the problems that I wanted them to practice with that include domain. These are all problems that I was able to generate myself. That means to code so that my students can get the problem that I specifically wanted. They are algorithmically generated. Our students get unlimited attempts. They get new numbers every time they try again and again. They get feedback. They can watch videos and things like that. Here is another example. Again, domain for this example. And these are the problems that come from me. Another thing that I can do is when I receive a question, more than once in the course, I can dynamically change the course content. So I had a student, or I had a few students, email me and tell me that they are having trouble with piecewise functions. They did not know how to approach certain problems, and they gave me these particular problems as indicators. Question 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They didn't know how to do them. So what I ended up doing was I customized the course content. So what you see is from numbers 1 to 6, the lines are stuck together, and this is content that was already available to students. So there was content on piecewise functions, but it seemed obvious to me that there wasn't content that was targeting these particular problems. So what I did was I added my own content on piecewise functions. These are videos from the website, links to videos that are embedded in the course content. And I added notes, and I have them filled out and available to them. So again, if I notice that something is missing, I can dynamically change the course content, and I think this is what helps. So this is why you see the elevated success numbers. I provide targeted feedback, it is dynamic, and it is live. So the course is never what you taught the previous semester, because you never have the same students you taught the previous semester. My retention also satisfied the goals. I started with 63% before OER, and I ended up with 78% by the fall of 2013. This was my key semester because I needed to convince the math faculty in my department to come on board. The data that you see here are actually much smaller, or they look worse than the data my school keeps. So my school, after the census periods, after the first 3 weeks of add drop, then they start collecting data on how many students started in the class and how many students withdrew from the class. My theory is that if you use OER, you get a lot of students to withdraw from your class the first 3 weeks that the college is not monitoring, just because they cannot afford the textbook. So I am calculating retention from the list I have the first day and who shows up to class the first day and what happens by the end of the semester. So I really want to know if I do have an impact in the decision time that the students have to stay or not stay in the class. So for this data, before OER and after OER, I include every single student, even if that student is not recorded in my college's data as being in my class that day. So the numbers are better when my school presents them, but I wanted to know. I did very well. I think 78% success is really good. I think the students definitely do not withdraw because of the cost of the book. They may withdraw because they don't want to do the work. So fall of 2013 was the key semester, as I told you. The math department was on board. My sections were full. I had wait list. Students were complaining to other faculty why they were using a book that at the time had gone up to $166.75 plus tax at the bookstore. So the math department was willing to participate and get some training in OER. David Lipman trained us in my open math, and they adapted intermediate algebra, my intermediate algebra course for all sections, including full-time and adjuncts. Everybody received the training, and our data before OER, our success overall for the course was 37%, and the first semester of implementation, we ended up with a 53% success. And again, think that this is a course that the instructors basically took over at the end of the fall and had the winter break to get acquainted to. So I think that was a nice, welcomed jump in success. In the winter of 2015, the course had even better success. This is because I am the sole instructor of the one section we offer, and it doesn't mean that I'm a better teacher. It just means that the course is tailored to the way I want to teach it. So it is customizable. You will notice better results when you actually have time to go into your course and make it your own course. So my students get me as their instructor over the weekend. They can stop and pause the videos. They have seen the problems that they will see in the final exam. Regardless of the level of difficulty of the problems, at least the problems are not unknown. Again, this is an online section. It has a mandatory pass-fail final exam. If the student doesn't score 60% on the paper exam, they cannot pass the class. So regardless of the fact that this is how the section is offered, I still get a larger success than the rest of the school. So when we started with one section, in the fall of 2011, and if you include my summer semesters, it took us 6 semesters for our math faculty to get on board. In the spring 2014, which was the first spring that our college went with intermediate algebra for all sections, we had 272 students enrolled in that class, and if they would only purchase the access code from the publisher, they would all have spent $23,400. If they would have purchased the access code and the book from the publisher, these 272 students would have spent $35,600. So only for textbook cost savings, we had, a large impact, I believe. The withdrawals we saw were obviously not related to financial reasons. Another thing that I want to mention is that we did save these 272 students a lot of hassle trying to figure out where is the book, having access from day one. So other than the monetary amount, we also have done another additional service to our students. Since we first started in 2011 and up to today, fall of 2017, our college has had 3,497 students use My Open Math, or now in its evolved stage, it's called the Lumen Online Homework Manager. And we have saved them between $420,000 to $520,000. The prices that you see, the amounts describe prices at the semester that the student was taking the class. So it includes, the variation in price. And the lower amount is if the student would have purchased only the access code and have no access to the book or to the material of the course after the expiration of the code. And 520 would be if the student had purchased the book as well. From one section of intermediate algebra, we are now at all sections of college algebra, all sections of pre-calculus, statistics, liberal arts math, that we have 2 different courses, and intermediate algebra, of course. And we have someone piloting pre-algebra, although that doesn't save our students $50. The book is cheaper than that. Why do I think it works so well? I think due to the 5 R's, we own our courses and we can customize our courses to make them personable. The math community has increased extremely quickly. So we started with one book that had no online platform, and now we have hundreds and hundreds of books and thousands of homework problems in our homeworks. I don't know if you saw the codes. The code corresponds to the ordinal number you created your homework problem. I think I recently created 147,000, something like that. Our students have access to our courses on day one, content and homework, and our success rates have increased, helping instructor buy in. So obviously this is what brought the math department to of Tompkins Cortland to OER. Our students love it. Our student evaluations praise, all of these good things that we offer to them. They love the fact that they get immediate feedback on their homework during the weekend, especially when we have sections that are offered at night to adults once a week. The resources that we use are Tyler Wallace for beginning and intermediate algebra. For college algebra, we use multiple books, Lippmann, Stitz-Ziegler, and the CK12 algebra. For pre-calculus, we use OpenStax, which is another very good resource, they only offer the book. So again, if you need something interactive, you need to look around. And statistics, we also use OpenStax. OpenStax is a great hub for open educational resources, and a bunch of commercial publishers are trying to generate homework problems for those books. So I know that for pre-calculus and statistics and for calculus, there are XYZ homework, there is WebAssign homework. There are many commercial companies that will do homework for that. Also in the project Kaleidoscope, Amber Gillespie started and offered Intro to Psychology. Amber had a more significant impact in the beginning. She had more sections, up to 5 every semester, but her department didn't come on board as fast. So I think she still has one more person to convince, but the other people just recently joined. We have computer science and applications. Ken Whitener is teaching Introduction to Computer Science using the Python language. Last fall, I was in college visits with my daughter, and Cornell University uses Python for their Introduction to Computer Science. So actually, our class transfers to Cornell. We know because we have a lot of transfer students. Also, if you want to use word editing and spreadsheets and databases, there are Microsoft Office tutorials. They are free, but they are not open. Tompkins Cortland, since 2011, has expanded, and now we have OER in academic writing, a lot of computer applications and programming and information systems and computer support specialist courses. We have accounting, biology, communications, economics, public speaking, interpersonal communication, meteorology, mathematics, political science, psychology. We have all of our business courses online in OER. We are also part of the Next Generation Grant. So several colleges are offering fully OER associates degrees, and Business Administration Associates is for us. It launched this fall. So our first graduates that will have absolutely no cost in textbooks will graduate in hopefully spring 2019. So the image you see here is the chair of our business program and the person who was the leader for us to get into the business OER associate's degree. His name is Larry Chase. Tompkins Cortland has been a pioneer college in getting several things in place in order to make sure we have a sustainable OER future. So first we defined OER, and SUNY actually has used our definition to create its own definition. We have designated a coordinator and other support advocates. So Larry is one of them. We have recruited faculty advocates that help others to go on board. Larry is one of them. We have support from administration, so I would be remiss if I did not mention that Project Kaleidoscope was initially promoted by our administration. The administration has made sure that the faculty is compensated and gets enough professional development to do that. So having your administration on board is extremely important. We have the ability to promote OER on campus, and we have an incentive system. Our campus leader that I couldn't fit in the previous slide is Tony DeFranco. He is the man for the job. He is really good. He has been with us since 2011. He's an instructional designer, and he is outstanding in every single discipline. So what we do with our faculty in OER, you have the choice to adapt if you want, to blend if you want, to customize, and to develop and create. And if you want to, anything you want to do, we have it available to our faculty. And obviously, you as OER faculty also have the ability to do that. So you have many choices. You just need to figure out which one fits your style. Like I told you, we have a compensation. So we have a faculty MOA, and actually now it's part of our contract. It was an MOA in 2011. So we do have compensation for people at different stages. You get different compensation for developing, different compensation for adapting, different compensation for mentoring. Adjunct faculties get paid the same with full-time faculty. So we do have our adjuncts on board. We have developed an OER course development checklist, so you can receive help from our instructional designers, from our library. You do a self-assessment of where you are and how well you are going to do. We have description. To sustain the program, we needed to make sure that there is actually not completely free to students, but a small fee that will support the Lumen platform, our initiatives for professional development and things like that, you know, instructor compensation and incentives, all of this. So we do have an OER fee. A student who takes an OER course used to pay $10. I'm not sure if we will go up, but some other colleges do $20 and $25. This helps us contract with Lumen and helps them keep the databases. And there needs to be a sustainable model. I think if you are thinking of joining OER, you really need to be thinking about that. For example, I mentioned to you earlier, OpenStax and WebAssign is a publisher who creates online homework. WebAssign charges students $38 for the code for every semester, and $13 of that $38 goes to OpenStax to support the initiative and to keep the initiative going. So there has to be a small fee. Students really do not mind paying $10 instead of $166, and everybody's happy and they have everything all set up for them on day one. This is our student information system. A student can search for courses when they are trying to register, and they can select to show only OER courses if they want. Also below that circle, they can click on what is OER. This is a link, and it gives them the description of an OER course on our system student information system. Also, if they click, let's say, on Accounting 101, which is Principles of Accounting, they can see that there is no textbook purchase required for the course, and the course uses freely available OER materials. So we are, you know, embedding OER culture to not only faculty, but also to our students. Amber show increased success and retention. So when she first, before she had OER, she had C or better in her class for only 50% of her students, but after OER, she has 71%. Our college has saved over $1 million to our students in textbook costs, and half of that is attributed to mathematics, actually. The math department is fully immersed in this. this semester that we are currently going through, we have 41 instructors, 35 courses, 90 sections, and 1,700 enrolled students in those sections that use OER. We also are working on promoting and scaling OER. We have developed an OER playbook. We have hosted an OER colloquium for SUNY that was in March 2014 through an IITG grant, which is like an innovative teaching grant. And we have made promotional videos. You can see a picture of Amber in the top, one of the videos. We also were part of the Faculty Advisory Council for Teaching with Technology, and we had an OER task group, and that group worked in SUNY to promote and sustain and develop a system for OER. The task group goals were to standardize a SUNY definition of OER, which we have completed, engage the SUNY community and other OER experts for successful implementation, create tools to scale and sustain campus efforts, benchmark and share best practices, and we formed 3 subgroups: faculty, support, and institutional readiness. I was the chair of the faculty subgroup. The outcomes are great. You can go to SUNY OER or to Open SUNY and find all of this data. We have institutional readiness for OER on SUNY. We also have created the Open New York State website that is a cooperation between SUNY and CUNY to get into OER. There are many locations where you can look. SUNY OER, obviously, and Open New York State is a developing, rapidly developing area and websites, and you should definitely check them every week if you can. There is material posted there all the time. Lumen Learning is the company that came as an outcome of the Kaleidoscope grant and now has contracted with the State University of New York, and they host many courses, and they will host many of our SUNY courses. The Lumen Online Homework Manager is the LMS that we use currently. You can also go to My Open Math if you want to just experiment, and they are the same platform, only they have now split so that My Open Math can be just for those who want to experiment and practice and code. And the Lumen OHM actually supports colleges and, checks on security, FERPA, all of these nice laws that we have to abide by. Like I told you, Amber is using the Carnegie Mellon Open Educational Resources website. It's called the Open Learning Initiative. There are many courses up there. She does psychology, but there are multiple courses, including mathematics. You can visit the OpenStax College anytime. They are also a fast-growing website and a fast-growing hub for online resources. They do one title per content, so they don't like to have multiple intermediate algebras. They have only one. And instead of having multiple books, they actually have multiple authors. So all their content is peer-reviewed and contributed by several authors, maybe 12 or 15 per book. Sailor, the Community College Consortium for Open Educational Resources, or just simple Google Open Educational Resources and the topic that you want. Okay, that's it for me, and I will take any questions or any comments that you have.
Sophia, we've had some great questions in the chat, and I know when you screen share, it's hard to see that. So I'm going to back up.
Can I stop sharing?
Yes, you can. Absolutely.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
I'll back up so that we're sure to start with some of the first ones. Brian was asking, when you were talking about your YouTube videos that you make, do you mirror that content into your LMS? So my assumption would be that you have them integrated into Blackboard. Is that true?
Yes. So first of all, Blackboard integrates with OHM. So I do everything in OHM, and then Blackboard takes the students into Lumen's platform. In the Lumen platform, everything I make. So if I answer a question to more than one student, then that video is in the course. It's embedded in the whole content, so everybody can see it, not just the one student that asked.
Right. And there were some questions about the OER checklist and whether folks could see that, and if we could make that available. I know that a lot of people are interested
the OER
in that.
checklist if possible. You mean for the course? Okay, let me see if I can find it on our website.
Oh, and it looks like Alexis put a link into the OER playbook, which is great.
The course checklist too. I can post a link just a second.
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, appreciate that. And also, how do you address captioning for your videos?
All right, so there are two ways we address captioning for the videos. First of all, I'm using Camtasia. So Camtasia, actually I should say three ways. So first way, I'm using Camtasia. So Camtasia, if you send them the videos, will send you back the captioning that you can edit. So actually, if you send the audio part of your video, we'll caption it. The second way is that other instructors do, and I do, is to, when you create your video, to send it to your library, give it to your library, and the library will caption it because they have specialists that work for accessibility of our resources. So that's another way. The third way is if a student asks me, let's say on Saturday, a question for a quiz that is due on Monday, and I don't have time to talk to my library or talk to Camtasia or anything like that, what I do is in my videos, I actually have the text in the bottom. So my videos show that they are not captioned, but they are captioned because I have written the English words in the bottom. So as I progress through the video, I erase, you know, the top line, and then the text shows in the bottom. So they don't seem like they are captioned, but I do caption my videos just in case, because I don't know, especially if I ended up answering the question twice for different students, and I will want to post that video on my website, on my course.
Thank you. And we also have a question about if print versions of the textbooks that Tompkins Cortland uses are available at a low cost. Alexis did mention about the pilot going on with SUNY OER Services and SUNY Press, but maybe you could talk about your books in particular that you use.
Well, okay, yes. So obviously, you have to cooperate with your bookstore. Your bookstore needs to be in the game from the very beginning. Otherwise, you will not end up with good relationships. So our bookstore, a lot of our students can actually use their own credit card and their own funds and go and print them on Amazon or print them in Lulu or whatever way they want, or ask OER services to SUNY OER services to print it. But some students cannot afford that and would really like to use their financial aid to purchase the books. So they have two choices for TC3. One choice is to actually purchase the book. So they have to go to our bookstore, they have to request the book, because even though the bookstore says that there is no book required, they do have the information where and the web link where to find the book. So they can buy it printed from the bookstore if they want, and also our workbooks that are available on the online on the website for our students are also available to our bookstore. So some students who want to print the workbook, instead of making copies of the workbook as they go, they can go to the bookstore and ask for that. The price is not significant. I don't think for any of these items they will pay more than $23 at the bookstore. So even our workbooks are even smaller, because most of our workbooks are about 80 pages. So the student has 80 free copies to make using their TC3 ID. So some students choose to do that, and some students just go to the bookstore and buy the workbook.
Sophia, we have a question about your videos and Lumen here. So does Lumen share your videos with other instructors? Do you share your problems and videos back to the OER community? Is there that sort of partnership happening?
Yes. So every time, so the answer is yes and yes. Every course is open and available to everybody for a copy. So you can actually copy somebody's course just the way it is. In addition, all of my problems are available to everybody. I could have them as private, but I don't. So if you copy somebody's problem and you just do minor edits, you may not really want to offer it back to the community. But if you make significant edits, like what I needed for domain, what I needed for function, algebra functions, things like that, then I make it public. I put it on libraries. So I click certain libraries in OHM or my Open Math that these belong to, and I attach a video to every problem, which is that they help me solve this idea. So it shows an instructional video, and all of these are available as soon as the person uses the problem. And you can search, for example, you can search Georgiakaki, and everything that has my name will show up, which is all these problems that I have ever created, if you want something specific from me. Like, I really like an instructor, his name is Jim Smart. I Google Jim Smart and try to see if I can get problems that he has created. I have found out that our teaching style is the same. So everything is available to everybody. The licensing, the Creative Commons licensing in OHM is only CC BY. So we have all agreed to keep it as less restrictive as possible. So only our names show up in anything that we create. Like when I create a problem, OHM automatically enters my name in the description of the problem. So yes, it is available and everybody can have it. It's open to everybody.
That's terrific. I don't see more questions in the chat. Now, if anyone has something, you absolutely are welcome to type it. You can also, you should be able to unmute yourself. There's a button in the lower left corner if you'd like to talk. So I'll give that a couple minutes to see if there are any other questions before we wrap up. Question on the recording. Yes, the recording, the slides, which contain all of the information that and resources that Sophia shared will all be available. And what I'll do is I will also add the resources that Alexis shared into the slide deck so that it's all there, anything that was shared in the chat. We'll have it all in one place. You can access those materials at the same website where you registered. We have them put up a link to the materials after the session. So just kind of give me a day or so to collect all of that and get it over to the folks that manage that site for us. And I'll put the link to that chat to that site in the chat. All right, well, not seeing any other questions. Thank you for joining us today for this SUNY OER Showcases webinar. I put the link in the chat to where you can access those materials. And for future reference, if you're available next month, our next webinar will be held December 13th from 12 to 1 Eastern Time and will feature Lorena Mathian. She's a business instructor from Buffalo State College. Lorena will be sharing how and why she got involved with OER and how it has enhanced her business courses, prompting an increase in student engagement and also creating a more impactful student experience. She really brings the students into the course and the creation of OER content for her course. So that's a neat approach to listen in on. Check back on the SUNY OER Services registration site, as we will have the registration link for this webinar posted soon. And please also visit the link I posted in there, open-nys.org. This has a multitude of information and resources to get you connected, as well as faculty profiles for those experts in OER in your discipline. I want to thank Sophia for being our speaker today and for sharing all of her expertise. We look forward to seeing many of you at our next event next month.